is my neighbor, Nur Sultan Tuliakbay. He is paining my assholes. I get a window from a glass, he must get a window from a glass. I get a step, he must get a step. I get a clock radio, he cannot afford. Great success.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Screenplay Bust, your one-stop shop for all things movies. Stick around as we cover Iron Man's influence on Robocop, the failed Iron Man movie that never was, and how Iron Man's final fight scene stole seems a little harsh. Let's say took generous creative liberties when taking inspiration from Robocop 2's final fight scene. So let's get right to it, because this is the truth behind Robocop 2's influence on Iron Man. Before Iron Man became a blockbuster hit and a household name, he first premiered on comic book pages in December of 1962 with Tales of Suspense number 39, written by Stan Lee and Larry Lieber, with penciling and inking done by Don Heck and Jack Kirby. And the origin story presented in Tales of Suspense closely follows what we all know to be the definitive origin story for the titular character. Tony Stark, a weapons developer visiting another country, is kidnapped by a hostile military force after being injured by an enemy explosive. He must then build a high-tech suit of armor to escape and save his life. Through the years, the lore surrounding Tony Stark and Iron Man would grow and expand until, in 2008, the character would star in his very first solo motion picture, and the rest is history. If you want to know more about the 2008 Iron Man film and how it got off the ground, I've got a video for that linked up right above. But how exactly does this feed into Robocop, and how does Robocop feed back into Iron Man? Well, aside from the obvious comparisons, an injured man in a metal suit using his newfound tech power to right the wrongs of his past, there's actually a lot connecting Iron Man to Robocop, and Robocop to Iron Man throughout their shared history. For starters, Iron Man had at least in part some effect in the creation of Robocop and the Robocop script. This can be seen when co-screenwriter of Robocop, Edward Neumeier, was quoted saying, "I can see the influence of our film a little bit in the Iron Man films, but then Robocop owes a little bit to Iron Man." He then followed up by saying, "I was aware of the comic when I was a kid, and when I was an executive, I looked at them again to see if there was any mileage in making a movie from them. I was actually offered money to write a script for an Iron Man movie after Robocop." And that inspiration trickled into the movie itself. In Robocop, during the convenience store robbery scene, the criminal first picks up an Iron Man comic before heading to the counter to rob the store. This blink and you miss it part of the mise-en-scène was given context during the audio commentary of Robocop's Criterion Collection when Neumeier states that the scene was put in at my insistence just because I had to give some sort of sense or some sort of tip of the hat to the beginning of comic books for me.
How about that?
So now we know how Iron Man influenced Robocop. But how exactly did Robocop and Robocop 2 influence Iron Man? Well, to answer that, we first have to talk about the Iron Man movie that never was. When Robocop first burst onto movie screens in the summer of 1987, the film itself was met with great success.
Great success.
Making $53.4 million at the box office on a budget of around $14 million. In the decades to come, it would become a pop culture classic and beloved by the masses. However, directly after the movie's release, movie execs and fans alike were hit with Robocop fever. With Orion Studios fast-tracking a Robocop sequel, and Marvel showing interest in making an Iron Man movie in the same vein as Robocop. Although the history of this unmade Iron Man movie can be convoluted, what's important to note is this. In 1990, a treatment was written by Stuart Gordon titled The Iron Man, which was one word. And Gordon was only given permission to compose this draft if Stan Lee was a part of the creative development, which Gordon gladly agreed to. The treatment was then handed off to Mark Lafia and Robocop co-writer Michael Miner. The Neumeier draft was supposedly never written and has never surfaced. Lafia and Miner largely abandoned Gordon's treatment and instead wrote what was called by many as a Robocop Iron Man hybrid. In their screenplay draft, we meet a noble and reformed Tony Stark, who is already wearing his Iron Man suit to prevent heart attacks he has had in the past. However, if you read the entire movie plot, it's just a weird and puzzling story. Iron Man faces off against a somewhat generic and evil corporate businessman who wants to take over his company. Picture an Obadiah Stane type character with an OCP flair. An artificial intelligence that raps and tries to eat a baby.
What'd you just say?
I know, it's weird. And the love interest he does have has all the qualities of being Pepper Potts, but isn't actually Pepper Potts. It's needless to say that Gordon and Stanley hated the first draft. And because of this, they faced constant creative clashes between Lafia and Miner. Stanley accused the screenwriting duo of not understanding the character of Iron Man, while Lafia and Miner accused Stanley of not understanding screenplays. At the end of the day, it's one of those weird movies that you kind of wish happened because you wanted to see how weird it is, but glad it didn't because it would just tarnish the legacy of the character. If you want to learn more about this weird and ill-fated version of the Iron Man movie, let me know by commenting down below, and I'll make a video on it. Naturally, time moved on after the failed Iron Man screenplay, until we reached the year 2008, where Iron Man made his first motion picture debut. But if we look deeper into the Iron Man movie, we can see hints of Robocop that inspired it. More specifically, the final battle scene between Iron Man and Ironmonger, which greatly mirrors the fight between Robocop and Kane. And these similarities can be seen in 3 distinct areas. Each individual fight begins with a hero calling out his enemy's name.
Kane, let's step outside.
Furthermore, the story beats of the fight greatly mirror one another. Each enemy uses their imposing size and weaponry to toss the hero around in a David/Goliath type fight. Both enemies use their Gatling guns, rocket launchers, and superior size to get the upper hand over the hero for a short time. Finally, the way that the heroes defeat the villain is also shockingly similar. They both hop upon their enemy's back and pull out some sort of mechanical element that inhibits their enemy from fighting them. Now, I obviously can't show you both fights side to side because, copyright issues, but it's shocking to see how similar they both are, and how much Iron Man borrows from Robocop 2's final fight scene. But is there actually any proof linking one to the other? Aside from fans much like myself pointing it out, and a few articles on the internet that say that Jon Favreau was inspired by Robocop, but with no actual definitive sources backing it up, this analysis is left to speculation alone. But yet the similarities remain and are so very present in the film. So I guess all there is to say is,
I'd buy that for $1.
so comment down below and tell me what you think. Was Iron Man directly inspired by Robocop 2? Or was it just a coincidence?
Get right up here! Don't be shy!
Make sure to tell me what you think. And as always, if you've enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to turn on notifications. As always, this has been Screenplay or Bust, and I'll see you next week.